I thought I knew what love was. I really did. My name is Melvin Miller, and for 28 years of my first life, I believed in fairy tales. I believed that when you found the one, everything would fall into place like pieces of a perfect puzzle. I was handsome, people told me that constantly, though I never let it go to my head. My family loved me fiercely, my parents doted on me, my siblings looked up to me, and I cherished every single one of them with my whole heart. And then I met Joshua Adams. God, he was beautiful. Dark hair that fell just perfectly across his forehead, eyes like warm honey that seemed to see right through me, and a smile that could light up the darkest room. We met at a charity gala my family hosted, and from the moment our eyes locked across that crowded ballroom, I was gone. Completely, utterly gone. Our courtship was a whirlwind, 3 months of dinner dates, long walks through the city, stolen kisses under streetlights. Joshua was charming, attentive, and he said all the right things. When he proposed on a moonlit beach, tears streaming down his face as he told me I was his everything, I didn't hesitate. I said yes with my whole heart. The wedding was everything I'd dreamed of. My family spared no expense, and Joshua's modest family seemed overwhelmed by the grandeur of it all. I didn't care about any of that. I only cared about the man standing beside me at the altar, promising to love me for the rest of our lives. I do, I had whispered, my voice thick with emotion. I do, Joshua had echoed, and I believed him. Our first year of marriage was complicated. I told myself it was normal, that all couples went through adjustments. I'd come home from work at my family's company, excited to see my husband, only to find him distant, distracted, his phone always in his hand. Long day. I'd ask, pressing a kiss to his temple. Exhausted, he'd reply, barely looking up. Work is killing me. I understood. Or at least I tried to. Joshua worked in marketing, and he often complained about demanding clients and impossible deadlines. So I made excuses. I made dinner, I rubbed his shoulders, I gave him space when he needed it. I loved him, and love meant being patient, right? I'd started making plans for our future, our real future. I researched adoption agencies, spent hours looking at dog breeds that would be good with children. I'd created entire Pinterest boards of nursery designs and family vacation destinations. One night, about 18 months into our marriage, I couldn't contain my excitement anymore. I'd made his favorite dinner, honey-glazed salmon with roasted vegetables, and opened a bottle of expensive wine. Josh, I said, reaching across the table to take his hand. I've been thinking a lot about our future. He looked up, his expression unreadable. Oh. I want to start a family with you, I said, my heart racing with excitement. I've been looking into adoption agencies, and there are so many children who need loving homes. And I thought we could get a dog too, maybe a golden retriever? They're great with kids and… Melvin, stop. Joshua pulled his hand away, and something in his voice made my blood run cold. What's wrong? I asked, confused. I'm not ready for that, he said, not meeting my eyes. Work is really busy right now. Can we talk about this later? Later never came. Every time I brought it up, Joshua had another excuse, another reason to postpone our dreams. And slowly, I felt him slipping away from me like water through my fingers. The family reunion was supposed to be a happy occasion. My mother had organized it at our family's estate in the countryside, a sprawling property with gardens that seemed to go on forever. All the Millers would be there, including my cousin Sebastian, whom I hadn't seen in over a year. Do we have to go? Joshua asked that morning, his voice heavy with something I couldn't identify. Of course we do, I said, adjusting his tie with gentle fingers. My family hasn't seen you in months. They're starting to think you don't like them. That's ridiculous, Joshua muttered, but he didn't meet my eyes. The drive should have taken 2 hours. We'd been on the road for about 90 minutes when it happened. I remember it in fragments, Joshua's hands gripping the steering wheel, his face pale and drawn. I'd been talking about maybe surprising my parents with the adoption news, testing the waters of Joshua's reaction one more time. Maybe we could at least start looking at… Melvin, I can't do this anymore. Joshua suddenly shouted, and the car swerved. Josh, watch out. I screamed. There was a truck. Its horn was blaring. Joshua overcorrected, and then everything was spinning, metal crunching, glass shattering. Pain exploded through my body, sharp and all-consuming. When the world finally stopped moving, we were upside down, and I could taste blood in my mouth. Josh. I gasped, trying to turn my head. Every movement was agony. Melvin. His voice was weak, wet with blood. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't talk, I wheezed. Help is coming. We're going to be okay. No, He coughed and I could hear the rattle in his lungs. We're not. And I need to tell you the truth. Josh, please? I never loved you. The words came out in a rush, desperate and anguished. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, but I never loved you. I married you for your family's money, for the connections, for everything you could give me. The person I actually love. God, Melvin, it's Sebastian. Your cousin Sebastian. We've been seeing each other since before the wedding. The physical pain was nothing compared to what those words did to my heart. It shattered, completely and utterly shattered. What? I could barely form the word. I love him, Joshua sobbed. I've always loved him. But he didn't have anything to offer me. You did. And I'm sorry, I'm so fucking sorry, but marrying you was the worst mistake of my life. Not because you weren't good enough, you were too good. You deserved so much better than me. Tears streamed down my face, mixing with the blood. How could you? I'm sorry, he whispered again. If I could do it all over again, I would have chosen differently. I would have been honest. I would have. His voice cut off. In the distance I could hear sirens, but they sounded like they were underwater, far away and getting farther. Josh. Silence. Joshua. The darkness came for me then, pulling me under. My last thought wasn't anger or hatred. It was just profound sadness. Sadness for the love I'd given so freely to someone who never wanted it. Sadness for the life I'd imagined that would never be. Sadness for the children we'd never adopt, the dog we'd never bring home, the future that died with us on that lonely road. And then there was nothing. I woke up gasping, my heart pounding like I'd been running a marathon. But I wasn't in a hospital. I wasn't in a mangled car. I was in a bed, my old bed in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house. What the hell? I sat up, my hands flying to my body, checking for injuries that weren't there. No pain. No blood. Just smooth, unblemished skin and the familiar surroundings of a room I hadn't slept in for years. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. With shaking hands I picked it up. The date made my heart stop. Before we dive into this twisted, reborn, revenge and redemption, emotional love story, if you are obsessed with reborn and revenge stories, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and also comment on the story, and don't forget this story is an original work of MeBL Stories, no copyrights. If you see this story in another channel, please report that channel for copyright and theft. Now let's dive in. It was 3 years earlier. 3 years before the wedding. Before Joshua. Before everything. This isn't possible, I whispered to the empty room. But the memories were so vivid, so real. The accident, Joshua's confession, the pain, the betrayal, it had all happened. I knew it had. Unless I'd been given a second chance. Over the next few days I moved through life in a daze. Everything was exactly as I remembered it from years ago. My parents were planning the charity gala, the same one where I'd met Joshua the first time. My cousin Sebastian called to say he'd be attending, and my heart clenched at the sound of his voice. Sebastian Miller was everything Joshua had claimed to love. Charming, witty, from our family, but not as directly in line for the family fortune as I was. He'd always been kind to me in a distant cousin sort of way. The thought that he and Joshua had betrayed me together made bile rise in my throat. But they hadn't. Not yet. Not in this timeline. When the night of the gala arrived, I dressed carefully, my mind racing. Would Joshua even be there? Would I have to watch it all happen again, knowing how it would end? He was there. I spotted him across the ballroom, looking just as beautiful as I remembered. And I felt nothing. No spark, no attraction, just the echo of pain from a life that hadn't happened yet. Our eyes met. He started to move toward me, that practiced smile on his face. I turned away. Melvin. My cousin Sebastian appeared at my elbow, grinning widely. There you are. I've been looking for you. Sebastian, I said, studying him carefully. He looked genuinely happy to see me, with no trace of guilt or deception in his warm brown eyes. Listen, I want you to meet my cousin, Sebastian said, gesturing to someone behind him. He just moved to the city and I think you two would really hit it off. I turned and my breath caught. The man standing there was stunning. Tall, with platinum blonde hair that was almost white, sharp cheekbones and eyes the color of storm clouds. But more than his physical beauty, there was something in the way he looked at me. Really looked at me, not through me or past me, but at me. Melvin Miller, meet Damian Adams, Sebastian said. Damian, this is my cousin, the pride of the Miller family. Sebastian exaggerates, I said automatically, extending my hand. When Damian took it, something electric passed between us. His hand was warm, his grip firm but gentle, and he smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. It's a pleasure, Damian said, his voice deep and smooth. Sebastian's told me a lot about you. All good things, I hope, I replied, surprised to find myself smiling back genuinely for the first time since I'd woken up in this second life. Mostly, Damian teased and Sebastian laughed. We talked for hours that night. I learned that Damian was Joshua's cousin, Joshua Adams, who I could see across the room, now talking animatedly with Sebastian. The irony wasn't lost on me. Damian had moved to the city to start a new business, a bookshop with a cafe attached. He loved literature, old movies, and hiking. He asked me about my work, my family, my dreams, and actually listened to my answers. Would you like to get coffee sometime? Damian asked as the night wound down. I'd love to continue this conversation without the crowd. I should have said no. I should have protected my heart, built walls, never let anyone close again. But looking into those storm-gray eyes, I found myself nodding. I'd like that very much. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into weekend trips to art museums and long walks in the park. Damian turned into the person I thought about when I woke up and the last person on my mind before sleep. It had been 6 months since the gala, and my life had shifted onto a completely different track than before. Joshua had pursued me at first, but I'd been polite and distant, making it clear I wasn't interested. I'd watched with a mixture of satisfaction and pity as he turned his attention to Sebastian instead, just as he had in my first life. You're sure you're okay with this? Damian asked me one evening as we sat in his apartment, which overlooked the city lights. We were curled up on his couch, my head resting on his shoulder as a movie played on the TV that neither of us was really watching. With what? I asked, though I knew what he meant. Joshua and Sebastian had announced their engagement last week. Joshua is marrying your cousin. My cousin is marrying your cousin. I want to make sure you don't have any feelings for him. For Joshua. I lifted my head to look at Damian properly. In the soft glow of the lamp, he looked almost ethereal, his features cast in gold and shadow. But there was vulnerability in his eyes, a fear that I might confirm his worst suspicions. I don't love Joshua, I said firmly. I never did. Not really. Not the way I stopped, my courage faltering. Not the way you what? Damian prompted gently, his hand coming up to cup my face. Not the way I love you, I finished in a whisper. I'd never said it out loud before. In my first life with Joshua, I'd said those words constantly, desperately, hoping they'd be returned with the same intensity. They never were. But with Damian, I'd been holding them back, terrified of repeating past mistakes. Damian's eyes widened and then he was kissing me. Not the chaste pecks we'd shared before, but a real kiss. Deep and passionate and filled with every emotion we'd both been holding back. His hands tangled in my hair as he pulled me closer, and I melted into him, my hands gripping his shirt like a lifeline. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damian rested his forehead against mine. I love you too, he said, his voice rough with emotion. God, Melvin, I've loved you since that first night at the gala. I've been terrified to tell you, afraid of scaring you away. You could never scare me away, I promised and kissed him again. That night we made love for the first time. It was nothing like the mechanical encounters I'd endured with Joshua, where I'd always felt like I was trying to prove something or earn affection that was never freely given. With Damian it was different. It was slow and tender and passionate all at once. He undressed me with reverent hands, his lips trailing kisses down my neck, across my collarbone, everywhere his fingers touched. You're beautiful, he whispered against my skin, and I believed him. When he laid me back on his bed, his body covering mine, I felt safe in a way I never had before. His length pressed against mine, and the sensation made me gasp, my back arching into him. Is this okay? He asked, always checking, always making sure I was comfortable. More than okay, I managed to say, my hands exploring the planes of his back, the muscles flexing under my touch. He prepared me with patient fingers, kissing me through any discomfort, whispering words of love and encouragement. And when he finally entered me, filling me completely, I felt whole for the first time in 2 lifetimes. We moved together in perfect synchronization, our bodies learning each other's rhythms. His length stroked deep inside me, hitting spots that made stars burst behind my eyelids. I moaned his name like a prayer, and he answered with his own litany of my name, Melvin, God, Melvin, I love you. The pleasure built between us like a rising tide, cresting higher and higher until we both tumbled over the edge together, crying out in unison as waves of ecstasy washed over us. Afterwards, we lay tangled together, sweaty and satisfied, my head on his chest as his heartbeat slowly returned to normal beneath my ear. Move in with me, Damian said suddenly. I lifted my head to look at him. What? Move in with me, he repeated, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my bare back. I don't want to spend another night without you. I want this, us, every day. What do you say? What did I say? I said yes. Of course I said yes. A year later, I stood in a small chapel watching Joshua Adams marry my cousin Sebastian. Damian's hand was warm in mine as we sat in the pews, witnesses to a union I knew was built on lies and selfish motives. Sebastian looked radiantly happy in his custom tuxedo, completely oblivious to the fact that Joshua was using him just as he'd used me in another life. Part of me wanted to warn him, to pull him aside and tell him everything. But I couldn't. How do you tell someone that you remember a future that never happened? That their fiancé was a manipulative liar who would break their heart? Are you okay? Damian whispered, squeezing my hand. I nodded, turning to look at the man beside me. Damian was wearing a charcoal gray suit that made his eyes look like liquid silver, and he was so much more handsome than I'd ever thought possible. But more than that, he was good. Kind. Honest. Everything Joshua had never been. I'm perfect, I whispered back and meant it. The reception was held at a luxury hotel, and I couldn't help but compare it to my first wedding, the one that never was in this timeline. This was smaller, less extravagant, but no less beautiful. Sebastian and Joshua had their first dance, and I watched Joshua's face carefully. He was acting the part of the devoted husband, but I could see the calculation in his eyes. The way he scanned the room, noting which family members were present, which business associates he could network with. Even on his wedding day he was working an angle. Want to dance? Damian asked, offering me his hand. We moved onto the dance floor, and as Damian pulled me close, I let myself forget about Joshua and Sebastian and focused only on the man in my arms. I have something to ask you, Damian said as we swayed to the music. My heart stuttered. Oh. He pulled back slightly to look into my eyes, and what I saw there took my breath away. Love, pure and true and unwavering. Marry me, he said simply. Not a question, but not quite a demand either. A hope. A promise. I know we've only been together a year, but I don't need more time to know that you're it for me. You're everything I never knew I was looking for. So marry me, Melvin Miller. Make me the happiest man alive. Tears pricked my eyes. You didn't even get down on one knee, I said, my voice choked with emotion. Do you want me to? He asked, starting to pull away. No, I laughed, pulling him back. No, I don't need grand gestures or perfect proposals. I just need you. Yes, Damian. Yes, I'll marry you. 1,000 times yes. He kissed me right there on the dance floor in front of all the wedding guests, and I didn't care who saw or what they thought. This was real. This was right. This was the love I'd been searching for in my first life without even knowing it. Our wedding was 6 months later. A small, intimate affair at a vineyard with only our closest friends and family. Unlike Joshua and Sebastian's society wedding, we kept it simple and focused on what really mattered. The love we shared and the life we were building together. My family adored Damian. My mother called him her other son, and my father had actually cried during his toast at the reception, talking about how happy he was that I'd found someone who loved me as much as Damian obviously did. We honeymooned in Santorini, spending 2 weeks exploring whitewashed buildings, swimming in crystal-clear waters, and making love under the Mediterranean stars. Damian was an attentive lover, always making sure my pleasure came first, worshipping my body with hands and lips and that perfect length that fit inside me like we were made for each other. One night, as we lay on our hotel balcony, wrapped in blankets and watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, Damian turned to me with a soft smile. I've been thinking, he said, his fingers threading through mine. Dangerous, I teased. He laughed. I've been thinking about kids. Adoption maybe. And definitely a dog. A big one that will shed all over our furniture and bark at strangers. My heart felt so full it might burst. These were my dreams, the ones I'd shared with Joshua that had been dismissed and ignored. But Damian was offering them to me freely without me even having to ask. I'd love that, I said, my voice thick with emotion. All of it. A baby, a dog, a noisy, chaotic, perfect family. Then let's do it, Damian said, pulling me close and kissing my temple. Let's build our dream life together. And we did. We started the adoption process as soon as we got home, and 3 months later, we brought home a golden retriever puppy we named Honey. She was all paws and energy and unconditional love, and watching Damian play with her on our apartment floor made me fall in love with him all over again. Meanwhile, cracks were forming in Sebastian and Joshua's marriage. It started small, Sebastian mentioning that Joshua was working late more often, that he seemed distracted and distant. I listened sympathetically, biting my tongue on the warnings I wanted to give. Then Sebastian showed up at our apartment one night, his eyes red-rimmed and his hands shaking. "He's cheating on me," Sebastian said without preamble. "Joshua. I found messages on his phone. He's been seeing someone from his office." Damian and I exchanged glances. We'd suspected as much. Joshua had been spotted at restaurants with a young woman from his company, and the office gossip had made its way back to us. "I'm so sorry, Seb," I said, wrapping my cousin in a hug. "What are you going to do?" "Divorce him," Sebastian said, his voice hard with determination. "I'm not staying in a marriage with someone who doesn't love me. I deserve better than that." "You do," I agreed. "You deserve so much better." As Sebastian poured out his heartbreak, Damian made tea and I listened, offering comfort where I could. I didn't say, "I told you so," or reveal what I knew from my first life. I just let Sebastian feel his feelings and assured him that he would get through this. Later that night, after Sebastian had gone home, Damian and I lay in bed with Honey curled up at our feet. "You knew," Damian said quietly, "that Joshua would do this to Sebastian. You knew all along." I'd never told Damian about my first life, about the accident and Joshua's deathbed confession. But he knew me well enough to read between the lines. "I suspected," I said carefully. "Based on how Joshua acted, the things he said. I'm not psychic, but, yeah, I wasn't surprised." "Why didn't you warn Sebastian? Would he have believed me?" I asked. "Would you believe someone if they told you your fiancé was secretly a terrible person with no proof?" Damian was quiet for a moment, then pulled me closer. "No, I suppose not. I'm just sorry Sebastian had to learn the hard way." "Me too," I whispered. "But maybe this is how it had to be. Maybe he needed to see Joshua's true colors for himself." A year later, Sebastian's divorce was finalized. Joshua fought it tooth and nail, trying to get as much of the settlement as possible, revealing his true greedy nature for everyone to see. My family rallied around Sebastian, supporting him emotionally and financially through the ordeal. And through it all, Damian and I grew stronger. We'd been approved for adoption and were waiting for our match. Honey was now a full-grown, goofy dog who brought joy into our lives every single day. Our bookshop cafe was thriving, having expanded to 2 locations. One evening we got the call. "There's a baby," the adoption coordinator said. "A little girl. 3 months old. If you're ready, she's yours." I looked at Damian, whose eyes were already filling with tears of joy. "We're ready," I said. We named her Luna, our little moon who lit up our darkest nights. She was perfect, with dark curls and eyes that seemed to see right into your soul. From the moment they placed her in my arms, I knew that everything I'd been through, the pain, the betrayal, the death and rebirth, had been leading to this moment. "She's ours," I whispered, looking up at Damian, who was crying unabashedly. "She's ours," he agreed, pressing a kiss to my forehead and then to Luna's tiny hand. The first few months were exhausting but wonderful. Sleepless nights of feeding and diaper changes, Honey protectively sleeping beside Luna's crib, Damian and I taking turns walking the floor with our daughter when she was fussy. One night, about 6 months after Luna came home, I was sitting in the nursery rocking her to sleep, when Damian appeared in the doorway. "Hey," he said softly, moving to sit beside me. "Mind if I join you?" "Never," I said, leaning my head on his shoulder as we both watched Luna's little face relax into sleep. "I've been thinking about everything," Damian said. "About how we met, how easily we could have missed each other. If I hadn't moved to the city when I did, if Sebastian hadn't introduced us, if you'd said yes when Joshua pursued you." "But I didn't," I interrupted gently. "I said yes to you. And I'd make that choice 1,000,000 times over." "Even knowing how things turned out with Sebastian and Joshua?" Damian asked. "You could have prevented his heartbreak if you'd dated Joshua instead." I thought about that for a moment, really thought about it. In my first life I'd suffered the betrayal. In this life Sebastian had. Was one better than the other? "No," I said finally. "Sebastian is strong. He survived it and came out better on the other side. And if I'd dated Joshua to spare Sebastian, I might never have found you. I might never have had this." I gestured to Luna, to our home, to the life we'd built. Damian kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. "I love you, Melvin Miller Adams." "I love you too," I whispered back. We sat there for a while longer, just the 3 of us, and then Damian spoke again. "Should we tell her?" he asked. "When she's older? About the adoption?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "We'll tell her she was chosen, that we wanted her more than anything in the world. That family isn't always about blood, it's about love." A few weeks later we had a family gathering at our new house. bigger than the apartment, with a yard for Honey and a room each for Luna and future children. We'd already talked about adopting again in a few years. My parents were there, my siblings and Sebastian, who had brought a date. A kind-looking man named Marcus who worked as a teacher and looked at Sebastian like he hung the moon. "You look happy," I told Sebastian as we stood together, watching Damian show Luna's baby album to my mother. "I am," Sebastian said, smiling at Marcus. "Really happy. For the first time in a long time." "I'm glad," I said sincerely. "You deserve it." "So do you," Sebastian replied, nudging me with his elbow. "Look at you. Husband, baby, dog, successful business. You've got it all." Did I? I looked around at the people I loved, at the life I'd built, and realized that yes, I did have it all. Not because of money or status or family connections, but because I'd chosen love over lies, authenticity over appearances, and had been given a second chance to get it right. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and Luna was asleep, Damian and I stood on our back porch, his arms wrapped around me from behind as we watched the stars come out. "Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if you'd made different choices?" Damian asked. I thought about my first life, about Joshua's confession, about dying on that roadside. I thought about being given another chance and how I'd used it to choose differently. Sometimes, I admitted, but I wouldn't change anything about this life. About us. "Neither would I," Damian said, turning me in his arms to face him. "You're my everything, Melvin. You and Luna and whatever children we add to our family in the future. This is my happy ending." "Mine too," I said, reaching up to cup his face. "But it's not an ending. It's a beginning. The beginning of the rest of our lives." He kissed me then, deep and passionate, pouring all his love into that one kiss. And as I kissed him back, I sent a silent thank you to whatever force had given me a second chance. I'd taken it and built something beautiful. Inside, I could hear Honey's tail thumping against the floor and Luna making soft cooing sounds in her sleep. This was my family. This was my home. This was the love I'd always deserved but never knew how to find. And as Damian scooped me into his arms and carried me to our bedroom, both of us laughing like teenagers, I knew that my story wasn't about the pain I'd endured or the betrayal I'd survived. It was about second chances and new beginnings and the courage to choose love even when you've been hurt before. That night, Damian made love to me with a tenderness that still took my breath away. His lips traced every inch of my skin, mapping me like I was territory he'd never tire of exploring. His length filled me perfectly, and we moved together in the practiced rhythm of lovers who knew each other's bodies intimately. "I love you," he breathed against my neck as we climbed toward ecstasy together. "Every day I love you more." "I love you too," I gasped, my fingers digging into his shoulders as pleasure washed over me in waves. "Always. Forever." And when we finally tumbled over the edge together, our cries of pleasure mingling with declarations of love, I knew that this moment, this man, this life, was worth every moment of pain I'd endured to get here. As we lay tangled together afterwards, sweaty and satisfied and so completely in love, Damian brushed a strand of hair from my forehead and smiled at me with such adoration that my heart felt full to bursting. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" I asked. "For choosing me," he said simply. "For building this life with me. For being you." I kissed him softly, slowly, putting all my emotions into that single gesture. "Thank you for being the man I didn't know I was waiting for. For loving me exactly as I am." We fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, and I slept peacefully for the first time in 2 lifetimes. Because I wasn't haunted by what-ifs or regrets. I wasn't wondering if I was enough or trying to earn love that would never be freely given. I was just happy. Completely, utterly, perfectly happy. And that, I realized as I drifted off to sleep, was the greatest gift of all. Not the second chance itself, but what I'd chosen to do with it. I'd chosen honesty over deception, real love over convenient love, and a future built on solid ground rather than shifting sand. Joshua had shown his true colors in both lifetimes, and Sebastian had learned the hard way that sometimes the people we love aren't who we think they are. But he'd survived it, grown from it, and was building something real with Marcus. And me? I'd found Damian. I'd built a family. I created a life that was messy and chaotic and absolutely perfect. As I felt Damian's arms tighten around me in his sleep and heard Luna's soft breathing through the baby monitor on our nightstand, I smiled. This was my second chance at love and I'd made it count. This was my happy ending. Or rather, my happy beginning. The house was finally quiet. Luna had been particularly fussy tonight, fighting sleep with every ounce of her tiny determination. Damian and I had taken turns walking her, singing lullabies, doing everything we could think of until she finally surrendered to exhaustion around 11 o'clock. Honey had settled into her bed downstairs, and the soft sound of her snoring drifted up through the baby monitor we kept in the hallway. I stood in our bedroom doorway watching Damian as he moved around the room, his shirt already off, revealing the lean muscles of his back that I'd traced with my fingers countless times. Even after 2 years of marriage, 3 years of being together, the sight of him still made my breath catch. "She's finally down," I said softly, closing the door behind me. Damian turned, and the smile that spread across his face was warm and intimate, the smile he reserved only for me. Thank God. I love our daughter, but I was starting to think we'd never get a moment alone tonight. I moved toward him, drawn like I always was, like a planet orbiting the sun. "Miss me already?" "Always," he said, and there was such sincerity in his voice that my heart clenched. "Even when you're right beside me, I miss you." His arms came around my waist, pulling me flush against him, and I sighed contentedly, resting my head against his bare chest. I could hear his heartbeat, strong and steady, and feel the warmth of his skin against my cheek. "I was thinking," Damian murmured, his lips brushing against my hair, "about how lucky I am. How grateful I am for every single day I get to spend with you." I pulled back to look up at him. "Where's this coming from?" "From here," he said, placing my hand over his heart. I want you to know that you're everything to me, Melvin. You and Luna. This life we've built. I never want you to doubt how much I love you." Tears pricked at my eyes. Even after all this time, Damian had this effect on me, making me feel cherished, valued, loved in a way I'd never experienced in my first life. "I love you too," I whispered. "So much it scares me sometimes." "Don't be scared," Damian said, cupping my face in his hands. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm yours, Melvin. For the rest of our lives." He kissed me then, and it started gentle, soft brushes of lips, tender and sweet. But it quickly deepened, becoming more urgent, more passionate. His tongue swept into my mouth and I moaned softly, my fingers tangling in his platinum hair. Damian's hands moved to the buttons of my shirt, deftly undoing them one by one, his fingers grazing my skin with each movement. When my shirt fell open, he pushed it off my shoulders, letting it pool on the floor, and his mouth left mine to trail hot kisses down my jaw, my neck, across my collarbone. "You're so beautiful," he breathed against my skin, and I shivered at the sensation. "Every time I look at you, I can't believe you're mine." "I am yours," I gasped as his lips found a sensitive spot just below my ear. "All yours, Damian. Always." He lifted me then, his strength always surprising me, and I wrapped my legs around his waist as he carried me to our bed. He laid me down gently, reverently, like I was something precious and fragile, and stood back to look at me. "Let me see you," he said, his voice rough with desire. "All of you." My hands trembled slightly as I undid my belt, sliding my pants and underwear down my legs until I was completely bare before him. The way Damian looked at me, like I was the most exquisite thing he'd ever seen, made me feel powerful and vulnerable all at once. "Your turn," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Damian smiled, that slow, seductive smile that made heat pool in my belly, and removed the rest of his clothing. When he stood before me, completely naked, I took a moment to admire him. The way the dim lamplight played across his skin, highlighting every line and curve. The way his length was already hard, evidence of his desire for me. He climbed onto the bed, covering my body with his, and the feel of his skin against mine was electric. I arched up into him, seeking more contact, more friction, more everything. "Damian," I breathed, my hands running down his back. "Please." "I've got you," he promised, kissing me deeply as one hand traveled down my body, wrapping around my length and stroking slowly. "I've always got you, love." I gasped into his mouth, my hips bucking involuntarily at his touch. His hand was perfect, firm but gentle, knowing exactly how to touch me what I needed. He stroked me with practiced ease, his thumbs circling the sensitive head, making me whimper with need. "You're so responsive," Damian murmured, his lips moving to my neck. "I love the sounds you make. Love knowing I'm the one making you feel this good." "Only you," I managed to say, my breath coming in short gasps. "Only ever you." His hand left my length and I groaned at the loss, but then he was reaching for the bottle of lubricant we kept in the nightstand. The click of the cap opening made my heart race with anticipation. Damian's fingers, slick and warm, began preparing me with tender care. One finger first, sliding into me slowly, giving me time to adjust. Then two, stretching me gently, his other hand stroking soothing patterns on my thigh. "Okay?" he asked, always checking, always making sure I was comfortable. More than okay, I breathed. Need more. Need you. A third finger joined the first two, and I moaned as he worked me open, his fingers finding that spot inside me that made stars burst behind my eyelids. My length was achingly hard, leaking against my stomach, desperate for attention. Damian, please, I begged beyond pride or embarrassment. I need you inside me. Need to feel you. He withdrew his fingers, and I heard the rustle of him preparing himself. Then the blunt head of his length was pressing against my entrance, and I took a deep breath, willing myself to relax. Look at me, Damian commanded softly, and I opened my eyes to meet his stormy gray gaze. I want to see you. Want to watch you as I make love to you. He pushed forward slowly, entering me inch by inch, and I gasped at the stretch, the fullness, the overwhelming sensation of being completely joined with him. My hands gripped his shoulders, my nails digging into his skin as he filled me completely. God, Melvin, Damian groaned, his eyes fluttering closed briefly before opening again to hold my gaze. You feel incredible. So perfect. Like you were made for me. I whispered, wrapping my legs around his waist, pulling him deeper. I was made for you, Damian. Only you. He began to move then, pulling out almost completely before sliding back in, establishing a slow, deep rhythm that had me seeing stars. Each thrust hit that perfect spot inside me, sending waves of pleasure coursing through my body. That's it, Damian encouraged, one hand bracing beside my head while the other wrapped around my neglected length, stroking in time with his thrusts. Let me hear you, love. Let me know how good I'm making you feel. I couldn't hold back my moans even if I wanted to. They spilled from my lips freely, mixing with gasps and whimpers and breathless pleas for more. Damian's length filled me perfectly, stretching me in the most delicious way, and his hand on my length was driving me toward the edge embarrassingly quickly. I love you, I gasped out between moans. Love you so much, Damian. I love you too, he replied, his voice strained with the effort of holding back his own release. More than anything. More than everything. His pace increased, thrusts becoming deeper, harder, more urgent. The sound of skin against skin filled the room, along with our labored breathing and desperate moans. I could feel the tension building in my core, coiling tighter and tighter like a spring ready to snap. I'm close, I warned, my fingers digging into his back. Damian, I'm so close. Come for me, he commanded, his hand stroking my length faster, his own thrusts becoming erratic. Want to feel you. Want to watch you fall apart. His words, combined with a particularly deep thrust that hit my prostate perfectly, sent me tumbling over the edge. My orgasm crashed over me in waves, my length pulsing in Damian's hand as I came hard, coating both our stomachs with my release. I cried out his name, my body trembling with the intensity of it. The feeling of me clenching around him triggered Damian's own climax. He buried himself deep inside me, his length throbbing as he filled me with his warmth, my name a prayer on his lips. We stayed like that for a moment, both breathing hard, our bodies still joined, trembling with aftershocks. Then Damian carefully withdrew and collapsed beside me, immediately pulling me into his arms. That was... I started, unable to find the words. Perfect, Damian finished for me, pressing a tender kiss to my forehead. You're perfect. We lay there in comfortable silence, our heartbeats slowly returning to normal, sweat cooling on our skin. Damian's fingers traced lazy patterns on my back, and I nuzzled closer to him, feeling safe and loved and utterly content. Do you ever think about your past? Damian asked softly after a while. About the path you didn't take? I knew he was asking about Joshua, about the choice I'd made to walk away. Sometimes, I admitted, but only to be grateful that I chose differently. That I chose you. I'm grateful too, Damian said. For whatever twist of fate brought you to me. For every choice you made that led you here. I lifted my head to look at him, studying his face in the dim light. Do you believe in second chances? I believe in this, he said, gesturing between us. In us. In the family we're building. Whether it's a first chance or a second or 100th doesn't matter. What matters is that we're here together and we're happy. We are happy, I agreed, smiling. So incredibly happy. Damian pulled me closer and I rested my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Outside, the world continued on, but in this moment, in this room, it was just us. Just Damian and me and the love we shared. I want to adopt another baby, Damian said suddenly. And maybe get another dog. Luna needs a sibling and Honey needs a friend. I laughed softly. Our house is going to be chaos. The best kind of chaos, Damian replied, and I could hear the smile in his voice. The kind filled with love and laughter and family. Then let's do it, I said. Let's fill our house with children and dogs and love. Let's build the biggest, messiest, most wonderful family we can. Damian kissed the top of my head. I love the way you think. We talked late into the night, making plans for our future, dreaming out loud about the family we would build, the life we would create together. And when we finally fell asleep, tangled together in our bed, I felt a peace that I'd never known in my first life. This was what love was supposed to be. Not painful or uncertain or one-sided, but mutual and passionate and built on a foundation of trust and respect and genuine affection. This was my forever. This man, this life, this love. And I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. As sleep pulled me under, my last conscious thought was a simple one. I am home. Not in the house we'd bought or the city we lived in, but here in Damian's arms. This was home. This was where I belonged. And I would spend the rest of my life being grateful for the second chance that brought me here.